UFC, they didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? So going back to UFC 3 again, the combat, to me, you know, this game has a very funny way of trying to get people to respect range.
And it really is killing the whole simulation aspect of this game. It's really killing the number one thing for me. It's the fun factor.
The offense,
and
he doesn't have to worry about too much. He clinches.
For this.
Well, can't you punch him when he clinches? Oh yeah, sure you can. He's still gonna clinch you though. Only if you throw it. Only strike that you can't get clinched through in boxing range is a cross.
And a lot of people
literally, the only strike that you can't get clinched through is a cross. You can hit somebody with an uppercut hook, and they're like, yeah, that's cute. Let me get your back of your neck.
EA Sports UFC 4 was a follow-up to the wildly successful UFC 3 and fourth installment in the EA UFC franchise. With UFC 5 rumored to be potentially released in 2023, I think it only would be right to take a deep dive into the decline of the game. It was given an 8 out of 10 by IGN, but only 2 years later, and it does not feel like an 8 out of 10 game. I'm JMMA, and this is the Downfall of UFC 4. On August 14th, 2020, UFC 4 was publicly released and widely anticipated by many fans of combat sports. Not only that, but the game before it, UFC 3, was favored by many and most were expecting an even more polished game. During the first week of the release, many positive reviews were given. GamerRank even called it the best version of combat sports.
It's improvement over the last game. If you're new to the franchise and you want to play this game, it looks like fun to you, this is the one to get, obviously. But if you play it every year too, I'm not going to say you're going to be disappointed with it. I don't think you will be. I certainly found it to be superior to the previous one.
With EA Sports going in a direction to cater more to the casual audience, they decided to add even more cosmetic features, such as a deep creator fighter customization and pre-fight emotes, to name a few. At the time, it seemed fun and cool, but as time went on, the problems with the game became even more apparent. Unlike Quick Fight, Online Ranked Championships is a more competitive online mode built to challenge players more by matching them up against players on their skill level. You would think this mode would be fun and interesting, but it's quite the opposite. Unlike UFC 3, players are forced to play 2 certain weight classes per hour instead of choosing them freely. Also, the matchmaking in itself is very inconsistent. Now you can say those problems are nitpicks, but the gameplay issues are the icing on the cake. Online Ranked is where most of the traffic of players go, but sadly, this is where the problems of the game stem from. A mode meant for competitive play turned into an online pool of players exploiting inconsistencies within gameplay. Now developers felt like the clinch system in previous games wasn't fluid enough, so they decided to get rid of the clinch deny input to create a smooth transition from striking into clinch scenarios. But here's the problem. As content creator Joker Carnage explains it, the problem comes from the lack of transitioning within the clinch itself and the fact that the fighter being clinched can only punch and do one transition. This small exploit then created a whole meta playstyle around clinch spamming and really broke down Online Ranked itself. Even with patches to stop this, it simply didn't work. Within 3 to 4 months of the game being released, UFC 4 had a huge problem with players borderline cheating in a sense. That playstyle gave players a very unpleasant and frustrating experience on Online Ranked.
They're initiating the clinch. Their primary mode of offense is initiating the clinch. And it really is killing the whole simulation aspect of this game. It's really killing the number one thing for me. It's the fun factor. And I hope that EA Sports adds a denial for this. And in UFC 3 and 2, it was R2 and right analog up, or for you Xbox, RT and right analog up. And for this version of the game, you just have to move your head or back away. And a lot of people are taking advantage of the clinch.
The repetitiveness of the same style of gameplay turned many casual and pro players away from the game. On top of that, even more gameplay issues were more alarming, the main one being the knockdown system. Now the most knockdowns in UFC history is 5, but in UFC 4, that is extremely over exaggerated. Various instances of players getting anywhere between 10 and 18 knockdowns in a single online fight before getting a win. At times, it may not even guarantee a win. Most of the time, those fights go to decision or even better, and I say that sarcastically. The game mechanics allows for your opponent to KO you even after being knocked down over 5 times. Don't even get me started on the grappling. I can't even believe that's actually in the game. Around April of 2021, the UFC 4 community was absolutely flabbergasted at the things said in the official Discord for the game. Before I show you this, I want y'all to know, this 100% real, man. This ain't cap. Players tried to voice their opinion for some of the problems on the game. To everyone's surprise, and the UFC 4 developer responded to them word for word, go play UFC 3.
Shorts, don't get me wrong, but I want the obvious game-breaking mechanics fixed. Now, he speaks for the whole entire community that plays this game. August 14th of 2020, I think a lot of game mechanics should have already been fixed. Now, he says, nah, haters gonna hate. It never stops. We update one thing, they complain about another. I have no guilt in this because I happen to know everyone involved puts in more than a hard day's work, and that's enough. Now, this message here, guys, from I have no guilt, all to here, right? Cap. Straight cap is straight up cap. Going over to the next shot, and remember this message, right? Seems like everything that's been added or tweaked from UFC 3 is worse. The developer says, then play UFC 3.
Looking at this now, it's very disappointing to hear a developer for a game that you play a lot tell you that your input isn't justified, to tell you that your input does not matter. After this, more and more issues with UFC 4 became more noticeable, and with that, more players began to stop playing, mainly due to the fact that nothing was done about these major gameplay problems, and we were only 8 months removed from the release. It seemed as though things weren't going to change. It seemed as though no one really cared. Fast forward to now, and those same problems that I mentioned before throughout this whole video are still in the game. 2.5 years later, and almost nothing has changed. New fighters may be added here and there to give the game a boost, but how long does that actually last before things go back to how they were before? It seemed as though UFC 4 has truly reached the bottom, and with the release of the new cutting-edge boxing game Undisputed, if things don't change for the next EA UFC installment, I expect players to go over and play Undisputed. The game being released in 2020. The game was released in 2020. It's 2022. The same bugs, exploits, and glitches occur in the game today. I think it might be fair to say UFC 4 has had the worst decline out of any recent combat sports game.